This is Kristen Welcome coming to you from Outlaw Review. Today I'm sitting down with Lincoln Durham.
So, talk to me about your style of writing, and I know you use some different types of things to make sounds in your music. Where do you believe that inspiration comes from?
Uh, well, the style of music came. Well, I'll go to the pieces first. I guess I was always a big Tom Waits fan, and Tom Waits said once that I think the like dried leaves and sticks on a trampoline made the best snare drum, and it was from that mentality of anything can be a an instrument. You just have to tap on things and beat on things and pluck on things to find out what kind of noise it's going to make. And I was always drawn to that kind of stuff because it was always birthed in from trying to make something different, trying to make sounds that were a little different than what you would normally hear on the radio, and even um, still, that's the way I try to approach it, trying to mix things differently than what you'd hear, so that when in this generation of music where you're listening to mixes or playlists rather than albums, anytime your song comes on, it's very quickly identifiable as your song if the people know who you are, and that's where it kind of came from. Yeah, so we would use saws to saw on things and record that, and bird feeders and things, just all kinds of contraptions that would make a cool noise. We would go into studio and just set things up and hit on things and see what made cool sounds.
So, where do some of the ideas come up from? Like, for example, like where would you get the idea to use a bird feeder for to make a certain sound?
You just kind of go and walk into a Home Depot or and just start hitting on things. Once you start viewing just regular items as possible percussion things or stringed instruments, then it's just that's just how you're the lens that you're looking through life with. You just kind of see all kinds of pots and vases and whatever, and that the bird feeder was a contribution from the drummer that we drummed with or that was drumming on that record at the time. Um, he had it out in his yard and brought it in just to see what kind of noise that would make. So that's how that came about.
And when you're creating a song, what comes first for you naturally? Is it the lyrics or the instrumentals?
For me, it's a little bit of both. Generally, um, I think that for the most part, it's probably the the music. I would say there's been. It seems almost equal that sometimes the song comes first, sometimes the lyrics come first, and sometimes they come together. But generally, I would say for the most part, the song comes first because for me, that's the more difficult part uh, for creating a song is finding the next groove or the next chord progression that doesn't hopefully doesn't sound like your other stuff, that's unique but still pleasing and catchy. The riffs, the the kind of catches of the song, that for me is the hardest, and then lyrics are usually secondary for me, even though they're the most important part to me. They come a lot easier, so I tend to try to fight with the melody of the song first, and then once I establish that, then I'll start in with the lyrics. And a lot of times I'll already have the lyrics or a bank of lyrics in my book that I write in. I've got a book that I carry around with me, a couple of them, and just anytime I get an idea, I write in. Sometimes the lyrics come from just journal entries or thoughts or kind of mindsets that I was in at the time. So then I'll kind of reference back and read back through that stuff and see if anything kind of sparks something creatively in my head to write a song out of. And sometimes the song is already there in the book. It's just connecting the dots, from one thought to the next.
No, I know, or I have read that oftentimes a lot of your lyrics seem to come from very dark or super personal places. Talk to me about that writing process a little bit more and about how it must feel to put so much of yourself out there while performing.
Yeah, I'm not real great at writing, deciding I'm going to write about a topic and then writing about it. Maybe current events or a story I read, this and that. It's harder for me to write without feeling pretty deeply what I'm writing about. So generally, what I'm feeling deeply about is the things that are going on in my head, and I've had all my life bouts with mental instabilities, I guess, and so that's what I gravitate towards when writing. It's just what I feel the most, and so I think what comes out the purest in the form of art or a song. It's always been my therapy when things are really if I'm going through a highly emotional time or various things are happening in life that's affecting me mentally and emotionally, then that's when I find it's easiest and most necessary to write, and it kind of expels those demons. It makes what you're going through at that very specific time a lot more tolerable, because it's kind of like going to a therapist and talking. And then on stage, I guess for some I would say there probably is a vulnerability about it, because you are kind of using the stage as a psychiatrist's couch, I guess. But for me, it's less that, and it's more. I'm happy to let people know how the things that I'm going through, because for some reason that makes me feel better. But also, I think makes the show more genuine for me when I go up and perform. A lot of times I get the feedback that it feels very raw, and it feels like I'm really feeling the show and into the music, and I think that helps. It's because of the subject matter, and it's so personal to me that it does mean a lot, whether I'm playing for 5 people or 300 people. It is very important to me what I'm up there doing. So I think less than it's feeling more vulnerable, like maybe it should feel. For me, it feels, I don't know, it feels right. It feels like I'm doing something that makes a difference. It makes a difference to me, and then maybe hopefully it makes a difference to other people. So it's not just up there going through motions of a pop or whatever. Not that there's anything wrong with pop, but just a top 40 song that was written to appease the masses. This is a very personal experience for me and hopefully the audience as well.
And you have such a eloquent way of using language when you write. It goes to me beyond, you hear, like you said, like pop and regular music. It touches on something so much deeper and darker. And so I would just ask, like, what are some of your influences that have shaped your writing style?
I'm a reader, especially of old literature, and I think primarily that's what's done it. the language that they used, back. I like old English literature. I like old American literature. I'm a big fan of Poe and his short stories and things like that. Oscar Wilde. I think just being so engrossed and obsessed with that style of write or of novel writing or short story writing is what shaped what I do because like you say, it's their use of language. They use language as an art form itself, and we just had a better way of speaking back then, and I've always been obsessed with that style, and so yeah, when I write, I do the most effort and the most thought and time goes into the way I structure the sentences and the words that I use, and I want it to. The biggest compliment I ever got was someone said that my songs read like a novel, and that's what I want it to do. I want it to be. A lot of times, it could be your favorite song. If you take the music away from the song, it's almost comical, when you read the words just as they are. And I always wanted mine to be a little more, to read a little bit more, hopefully like poetry rather than just a catchy tune. I wanted mine to when you remove the music, there's still a lot of substance and a lot of hopefully art in just the words themselves, and not just the music or relying on all of it to be put together. It can be broken apart and still interesting. But yeah, it's mine is all from the just reading that old literature like that. It's when I write the best is when I'm engrossed in that sort of stuff.
I could certainly pick up on that, and it's very easy to read through your lyrics and have it sound like you're reading, like you said, like poetry from old.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the intent.
Is there any favorite writer or musician that has inspired you in particular?
Musician would be Nick Cave for me. For those that don't know Nick Cave, he is one of those that his lyrics are that way. They're heavy and they're very important. Same kind of a situation with him. He's a big fan of old literature. And so his style, and also he's kind of got this darker, gothier style of music, heavy at times. I mean, a lot of his newer stuff is much more ballady, but he gets very heavy and very dark. So although we're not musically, when you hear us, A beat, it's I would say hardly nothing alike. He's the biggest influence for sure. He's just got. I think he's the best songwriter out there because of the weight of what he says. And then I guess I would say, I mentioned it before. I mean, I'm such a huge reader of all kinds of stuff, but I think the one I always gravitate back towards is just Poe's stuff. I have a fondness for his storytelling, the structure of his sentences, just to go into detail. I've always been a fan of his stuff. Poetry, I go to Rilke a lot, who's much less dark than the usual of what I like, but he's probably the top one as far as that sort of thing goes.
Now, your most recent album, and Into Heaven Came the Night, came out back in the spring. Talk to me a little bit more about that album and talk to me about the production of it, as I know you did the production yourself.
Yeah, that one I'm pretty proud of that one. I feel like on the last record, the previous record, I might have veered a bit farther than maybe I should have or was comfortable with from what I normally do. This one, I think as an artist, you should always grow and try to make yourself and make your fans uncomfortable, really. Try to push and see how far you can continue to grow and not get settled with a certain sound and just keep churning more and more of those out, even though sometimes that's maybe the better way to keep fans and keep money up. I prefer to kind of try to keep pushing the boundaries. So on this one, what I did was keep going forward with pushing in a semi new direction, but then also bringing out some of the things that I've done in the past that that people did like, and so I think as a result, you have it's a balanced record that's moving forward, but still very obviously me and very obviously drawing from what I used to do and kind of manipulating it and sculpting it into something new, but not quite so forward as what I've done in the past. So I'm real happy with kind of the balance, because I think that's what I need to do for a while is push and also bring remnants of comfort with me as well. But on the production end, I'd never produced an album before. My producer for the past three was George Reef, and he co-produced the first one and then produced the second and third one. And George passed away shortly before I was about to start on this fourth record. Very early, he was 50, I think, if even 50. So that kind of left me, feeling around in the dark and wondering who I was going to get to produce it. And ultimately, I decided to take what, George was a mentor too, so I kind of took what he had taught me and decided I would try to take it on myself. And so I did. I produced this one on my own. I had a great engineer, Matt Parmenter, at his studio, and just a drummer. I do the one-man band show live, but recording, I usually use a drummer just because I'm not a drummer. And so a drummer, Chris Hausler, and between the three of us, and an amazing mixer, Chris Bell, who's an old friend of mine, who I think made the record with his mixing. We turned out something that I'm really happy with and proud of. So I think I'm going to move forward with producing my own for a while.
On the onset of it, having to, unfortunately move away from working with George because he passed away, did it feel foreign to you, or was there any time that it was kind of like a fearful or like a learning experience trying to do the production yourself?
There was, yeah. What I tried to keep in mind the whole time was, in a lot of it, was kind of filtering it through what I feel like George would have said, and I feel like I kind of had a good grasp, even when if you're pushing down one direction with a song and you just feel you want to go this direction, but there's still always this feeling like you kind of know that it's not working. And whereas you might just double down and say, well, this is what I want to do. What I tried to do was kind of have that George in the back of my head, or whispering in my ear that, it's not really working that way. What if we tried it this way? And that part's, fairly difficult to govern yourself when, to say, just where someone else would say, hey, let's stop, let's give this a minute, let's try it, maybe it's slower, maybe it's faster, maybe it's putting the bridge here instead of there, or maybe it's, switching these verses, anything like that. It's very uncomfortable to do sometimes late in the game when it's just you and you have the option to just keep it to yourself and just keep going. But to stop and say, okay, I to be that voice of reason, I guess, within yourself, can be hard. But that's what kind of helped me in a lot of ways through it, was to kind of look at it through that lens of what George would say. And then at the very beginning, the first couple days we went in the studio, we had a little break. We went in for 2 or 3 days and then had a break because of some scheduling things. And listening back, I had a huge, panic meltdown because it seemed like it was snowballing into the wrong direction. I had never done it before, and when you get in studio, things just start going so fast that once you sit back and listen, you realize, oh wait, it kind of derailed and is nothing like what I had envisioned. So there was that big part of having to then stop. Basically, I just halted everything and figured out a new direction to approach it. And then once I did that and kind of found like rather than this is how people record, I found out how I wanted to record, and go about it myself. Then everything got a lot more comfortable. And then after that, I was pretty really stoked about it, but also I felt good about what we were doing. I felt like we had I'd found kind of a groove as to how to produce myself, and I think I'll use that same format the next time.
If you had to pick any one song off that album that you think came out the best or that is your favorite, what would it be?
I think that's a good one. I guess, God, it came out. Well, my favorite, just my unapologetic favorite is Feather. I think just because it's a really heavy, hard song, and it turned out pretty much exactly what I wanted it to be, and I think it also kind of was a nice bridge between what I want to do now and what I was doing in the past. It still has maybe the vibe of the old stuff, but very hard and heavy, like what I'm leaning towards now. Yeah, I'm just a big fan of that song, and it had a lot to say in it, and I think it turned out the best. It's probably the second or third favorite on the record, I guess, as far as fans. But yeah, it just that one came out exactly like I wanted it.
Well, in my opinion, it is actually my favorite.
Oh, right on, cool.
I think what resonated with me, like you said, was some of the hard tone that it took, but also the lyrics were so very in your face.
Yeah, it's scathing.
Talk to me about what inspired writing that song.
Just how a lot of different elements from very small to very wide encompassing, but just feeling very uncomfortable in being whether it's in your personal life or in the grand scheme of things, feeling like a passenger in a runaway train or a passenger in a vehicle that has no driver or driver that doesn't know what they're doing, kind of a thing. It's just the refusal of just kind of letting someone else dictate your life or the world that you're in, kind of a thing. And it was this bowing up against against whatever powers in your life are kind of trying to lead you one direction. You say, no, I don't. I'm not going to do that. It's like a protest song in whatever realm you want to protest.
And did you feel like you were dealing with something in particular that made you want to say that in a song?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's always for me it's always personal. So for me it was just society in general. It's just taken me in a direction that I was not happy with.
And it is so easy, I think, to feel that way, especially in today's society.
Yeah, exactly. And it was just my my like I said, my lyrics are always just very, my personal, whatever I'm going through at the time, and that I just at the time felt I had no control over, my life and my surroundings, and so that was my letter saying, well, I'm not gonna just just go along for the ride.
Absolutely. Well, it definitely makes the perfect riot song.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's coming up for you now in the next year? Anything else that you're working on? Tours that we should know about?
Um, Nothing on the books yet. We're working on a bunch of well, what I know we'll have coming up are I'm gonna do some more videos, some more live, and some more music videos. We'll be touring throughout this year, and then just starting fresh next year. We're working on getting international again next year. So we've got some stuff that we're working on that we'll hopefully be announcing, as soon as we can. But we did a Norway gig a few months back, and or some Norway shows, and so we'll be realized we can go international again. So we'll be doing that, and then I'll be writing I'm already about I would say maybe halfway through writing the next album. So in the next probably at some point in 2019, I'll start going back into studio and recording the next one, which will probably be kind of a sister album to this one, and then looking into the future, probably to doing some maybe like a more bare bones acoustic album, things like that. So yeah, we got a lot of stuff. Nothing like in stone or like with dates, but a lot of things that we're working on.
And so the plan is still to pretty much solely do everything yourself, and including you really don't use any other musicians other than a stand-in drummer some of the time.
Right. Yeah, I think that's what for the foreseeable future, that's what I'll do. That's what I've always done thus far. So that's probably what I'll continue to do. I've been toying around with maybe doing a record that is kind of a one-off that has nothing to do with the live show or the vibe that I want to have on stage or whatever, and just kind of doing like a full band kind of a thing, just for fun, as a side thing. But as far as the regular uh, chronology of it, I guess it'll still just continue to be me. I do want to produce at least one or two more probably, because that once the learning curve was out of the way, that was a lot of fun. And I've got a studio set up at home as well, so I'm able to do a lot of the tracking at my place now. So a lot of it gets done at Ice Cream Factory with Matt Parmenter there in Austin. But then some of it now I can do at home, which is really cool because it kind of allows me to get a little more detailed, get a little bit more experimental with what I want to try and what I want to do. And so I have formed my team that I'm really comfortable with just on this last record. So now I kind of want to roll at least one or two more out with this team that I'm really excited about.
Do you think that will transition into wanting to produce other musicians' albums as well?
I've asked myself that same question, and I don't know, because I do my own art and all that stuff for the entity, or for myself, whatever you want to call it, for the thing, as well. And um, it would have to be something that I think it would have to be a project that I feel like would fit into the vibe that I like to create. You know what I mean? Like I think a lot of that's the thing. The key thing with a lot of actual real producers is they can work with whatever's brought to them and bring out what's best in that band. I think for me, being so green at it, being so new, it would have to be something that was that I could easily kind of take down into my realm, and make it into something that similar to what I would make. But as I grow, maybe that might change. But right now, I think, yeah, it would have to be something that would be similar, I guess, to what I do already.
And from your beginnings, and I know you kind of quoted that you don't really like to work too much with other people. Do you feel that that's changed at all through this process?
Well, that was always more of a something I made up for the tagline more than than the actual truth. I mean, the the original idea behind the one man band was just because I couldn't afford the band at the time. I always wanted a band, and but then as I started getting better at doing this one man band thing, and then adding more contraptions and junk and weird stuff, then that's what kind of took, and that's what made it. That's what got. That's what my fans, I think, started gravitating towards. So I just doubled down on that and decided I'd go that direction. I think I'd probably lose some fans at this point if I got a band. Um, I was never quite like that, but I will say I have gotten to the point where I kind of like I know what I want, and I don't really necessarily want a lot of a lot of other opinions in the mix when I know like the tone or the sound I want. So I guess that to to contrast that, I guess technically I guess I don't play well with others, but this crew that I've got around me are with Chris Bell doing the mixing and Matt Parmenter with the engineering. I think it does work well because they understand what I'm trying to get now, and and yeah, so it is kind of, I guess, just everybody's working towards what what I'm trying to get. So yeah, I think it does lend itself well for what I do. I think now at this point in my career, if I had like say a producer or something that was really pushing against certain ideas, I would probably not like it too much. So I don't know. I don't know if I've grown at all in that respect or not.
And does that transition also into when you create the music videos? Is it that independently done as well?
No, that's us as well. That's usually either me or my wife, Alyssa, who's the tour manager, and helps me run. Well, basically runs the company. I don't other than creatively, I don't really know what's going on. She runs the company, but then she helps with the videos as far as like directing them and a lot of a couple times coming up with the ideas and the vibe. She's very creative in that realm. So yeah, between the two of us, we do the video stuff. We'll have people shoot it. So like there's a guy named Richard Weimark in Austin who owns API Productions, and he shoots the footage and stuff for us, and then he's edited some stuff, but primarily as far as the ideas, it's her and I doing the videos, or sometimes just her doing the video, and then I do all the artwork end of it, and then and then I do the music end of it. So yeah, it does it spans into, and we have a lot of there's a lot of bands that the management that I have, they have several other bands, and they tell me, there's a lot of bands that aren't very hands-on like that, but we're probably overly hands-on. We just like to have our hands on all of it. So it does definitely, that ownership bleeds out into pretty much every aspect of the business.
And then as far as your visual art, do you show that independently outside of just using it for the album?
Yeah, I do. I do some. I do a lot of, well, some artwork for other bands and things like that. And then I do when I'm at home, when we're not on the road or we're not working on an album or this and that. I pick up jobs doing like freelance artwork for advertising agencies and stuff like that. If that was the question, I think that was the question.
And then do you ever have like shows or anything like that also that you do?
Oh no, I would love to do that. I've thought about one of my ideas that I don't know when will come to fruition. I have the idea of doing an art gallery, kind of telling the story of Annie Departee. I've been trying to figure out a way to tell her story I, either by a graphic novel or by definitely at some point a music video, even though the song is 4 years old or more. I still want to do a music video just to tell her story, but then another angle that I've thought about taking before was to do an art gallery where the paintings are telling the story. And even if I do the other realms, I'll likely at some point do that, just because it's something I've always wanted to do.
I think that would definitely be really cool to have all those different elements, like the visual and the music with it.
Yeah, one of the ideas I had was doing like an art gallery with a show at the end, kind of a thing. And so that's definitely something that I'm sure will happen at some point before it's all over.
Well, that'll definitely be interesting. We'll have to stay tuned for that. Is there anything that I didn't cover with you today or anything else that you want to share with our readers?
No, that's good. We covered a lot more than usual, so I love it. No, just to if you check out the music and you like it, just please tell others. That's still the best way that there's in the world of social media and instant access to everything. It's still word of mouth seems to be the best way to gain fans and to bring people into the shows.
And we definitely will, and we'll be happy to post up the links to your website as well as videos and things that you also have with the article and everything that we've done here today.
Absolutely. That sounds great. Thank you.
Well, thank you again for taking the time to speak with me today.
I thank you for, like I said, thank you for showing interest and for helping spread the word. I appreciate it very much.
Absolutely. Well, you have a wonderful day.
Okay, you too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.